So once again, we're in the Vision on TV studio. I have with me again Billy Bragg, a man who's been to a huge range of political actions over his lengthening career. Billy, could you tell us a bit about your involvement in the Occupy movement, which I understand you've been involved with really from the start, the first day in Paternoster Square when the police were keeping people away from the London Stock Exchange?
Yeah, I went down to that original demonstration, and as it evolved, I wasn't there in that week. I was subsequently on tour in Ireland, but very quickly after Occupy London set up, Occupy Dame Street, which is where the Irish Central Bank is in Dublin, set up, and I went down to see them, and they had a very large march through the centre of Dublin down O'Connell Street, probably had 2,000 people. Ended up at their site, and I played a few songs there, and I've been really invigorated by it, and for someone like myself who was, involved in things like the miners' strike, this is a new politics which I think is very, very healthy, because the kind of ideological politics that we were involved in the 20th century have sort of fallen away. The end of the Cold War, the decline of the Soviet Union, the bland nature of the more or less two-party politics we have in the UK. This is completely different from the left and right arguments we had during the latter part of the 20th century. Margaret Thatcher, although I opposed her passionately, you can't help but admire her, because what she believed in informed everything that she said and did. She was truly a radical. Whereas with someone like Tony Blair, I don't know what he believed in still, so I think it's wrong to chastise young people for not having the same grasp of politics that my generation had, because politics has been much more harder to get a grip on. But having said that, what is interesting is how the Occupy movement has been able to build a head of steam without getting caught in the tentacles of the ideological left.
And tell me, you've been around a few of the different Occupy sites. We've been in London and Dublin, Edinburgh, I think you're talking about. Do you get a sense of sameness in them? Are they bringing out the same type of vibe, or they each reflect where they are? Or tell me about it.
They're performing the same function. They are setting the agenda for the discussion around bread and butter issues that people care about, rather than the issues of supranational finance, which seems to be a lot of the news agenda seems to be focused on. Angela Merkel this, Sarkozy that. For many people, they are up against the wall. They are facing very, very difficult choices. And of all the camps I've been to, perhaps the one experience that had the most powerful resonance with me was in Occupy Sheffield, where a man, I'm guessing his 60s, came to speak to me after I'd sung a few songs and spoke to a few people, and he'd been receiving disabled benefit for a very, very long time, and that had been now cut, and he was now in a situation, he told me, that he has to queue up at a soup kitchen regularly to get fed, and that's not the kind of country I want to live in. He was so angry about it, almost to the point of tears, and the Occupy movement had given him a focus to come and be part of and to be heard. The disabled often don't get the same forums as other activists do, or they have someone else to speak for them. And there was just a single example of one person who felt that here was a forum for him to come and join in something, so that it was just bigger than him and his problem and him and his, the corner that the disabled have been sort of like pushed into. So that to me was a good example of how this works. I'm not expecting any huge answers from the Occupy movement, but I do think that the possibility to create a post-ideological politics is really, that to me is perhaps the goal that we would hope that might come out of this, that a new generation finds a way to articulate that compassionate ideal that has driven socialism, that helped found the welfare state, that ensured that people in our country get educated free, that get free healthcare. That idea is still, it's still alive in our country, but it's kind of been, over the last 30 years, it's been concreted over by privatisation and commerciality.
Do you, I mean, a lot of people are sort of saying in the general media, the mainstream media, they're saying, oh, we don't know what they're standing for, we don't know what they want, they need to articulate their views. Are you getting a sense of some views, or do you think we shouldn't worry that there's nothing specific?
Well, I mean, one of the problems I think that the Occupy movement has is that they're constantly being labelled anti-capitalist. I think it's much more complicated than that. I think it's much more interesting than that. I think it's much broader than that. And I've been talking to my audiences and using a metaphor. And the metaphor that I've used is the situation at Manchester United with regard to the Glazer brothers, who came from the United States of America, bought Manchester United PLC and then loaded it with debts to make a huge profit. Now, the people who are campaigning against the Glazers, the Man United supporters who are campaigning against the Glazers, they're not anti-Manchester United, are they? They're not anti-football. They don't want to overthrow football. You know, they want the football match to be run, football game to be run for the.
I think it's probably one of your fans actually.
Well, hang on a minute. It's whose phone is it?
It's my phone. See, strange. See, this is what it's all about. So we have.
No, you're going to have to switch it off. I'm going to have to nail that metaphor again.
Okay. We can't edit this. This is shot live.
So yeah. Maybe we could riff it into a tune. Actually, could we riff the mobile phone?
Well, let me finish off my metaphor.
Yeah. With the just throw.
Oh, for fuck's sakes! Can you not just switch it off?
It's in that coat. It just needs to be thrown out. That coat there, throw it out the door. It's finished now.
No, it has.
Throw the coat out the door.
Switch it off.
Throw the door out the wall. Throw it out the door. It is that coat. Oh,
okay, just want to do a bit to camera about phones.
So that was an interesting little intervention from a telecoms company there. We had an extended metaphor about Manchester United and the Glazers,
I was just making the point.
Which was where we were.
Yeah, I was just making the point that the people who are protesting against the Glazer brothers believe that their football club should be run for the benefit of the supporters, for the many, rather than for make huge profits for an American company. And I think the Occupy movement is in a similar situation in which they are protesting about a rapacious capitalism that is impoverishing people rather than delivering a decent standard of living. And I think we need to make that distinction, because otherwise it's easy for our enemies to dismiss us as sort of utopian, communist rhetoric. I mean, that's all 20th century, and a really crucial aspect of that is that whole Marxist rhetoric is so tainted by totalitarianism. I'm hoping that the Occupy movement lives up to the potential of a new generation to create a new compassionate ideology that is untainted by the crimes of Stalinism, that doesn't need a Berlin Wall to keep people involved in it. I think that's the potential for this movement, and I'm hoping that it's taken a turn in that general direction. You can't change the world by smashing shop windows. We've tried that in the anti-globalisation movement, it didn't get us nowhere. I'm hoping that the occupation movement is something new and making new connections.
So we've got Billy Bragg there. He's admiring Margaret Thatcher. He's talking about Man United and the Glazers. He's slagging off my phone, which hadn't got switched off. And all of that in a Vision on TV interview here at Occupy UBS. And this is Patrick Chalmers.